So, welcome to the LRS virtual conference. This year, we have had to run with a very different format, but we are pleased to be hosting 14 virtual and pre-recorded workshops throughout the month of November. The title for our conference is Building Resilience Together, Supporting Mental Wellness, Utilising Sport and Physical Activity. We feel that it is important, especially at this time, to support the communities of Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland to look after their well-being, and we feel that physical activity and sport can play a huge part in helping them to do so. During the current pandemic, the importance of physical activity to support people's well-being the importance of physical activity to support people's well-being has reiterated by government, with us all being encouraged, where possible, to ensure we continue to lead an active life. In addition, there is lots of national evidence that physical activity and sport can have a positive impact on people's mental wellness. Exercise is often described as a wonder drug in preventing and managing mental health. We'd like to use this conference to raise the awareness of physical activity, sport, and the links to mental wellness, and encourage our networks to champion this agenda. It is an opportunity for you to build your networks, as well as sharing your expertise and experience with each other. Today's session will focus on utilising physical activities to address social isolation and loneliness, and will be led by Julia Day and Troy Young of Age UK. Julia and Troy will share an insight into the work they During the presentation, we will hear from those who have been involved in these programmes, along with volunteers supporting them, and I would like to thank them for sharing their experiences with us. I'd now like to welcome and introduce Julia and Troy and hand over to them.
Good morning. I'm just going to switch to our presentation. Hopefully you can see the screen there. Okay, so good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to Kate and Leicestershire and Rutland Sports for inviting us to participate in this conference this morning. Just like to be able to share some of the work that that we've done in the past and that we obviously continue to do, and how, despite current situations, what we do is as important as ever to support older people in the community. I'm Julia Day. I currently work as the Loneliness Prescriptions Coordinator, a project that we will talk about in more detail further along. I've been with Age UK, Leicestershire and Rutland for about 3.5 years, working with volunteers and delivering befriending and mentoring services across the city. And also a Food with Friendship project across the county. So again, we'll talk a little bit about those projects. And also I'm joined by Troy Young, who is our Assistant Director and oversees many of the services and projects that are currently running. I will be talking about some of the projects we've done in the past that have focused on physical activities and obviously what we're doing at the moment. And as well as talking about obviously a lot of the work that Age UK, Leicestershire and Rutland do. Not everyone's aware of the structure or how we are. And then we'll look at a couple of case studies. And finally, we'll look at the physical activities project, which has been funded by Leicestershire and Rutland Sports, that we are currently delivering as best we can in the circumstances. So while I just work out the next slide. There. Okay, so Age UK, Leicestershire and Rutland, it's a brand partner with for Age UK National. So we have our own board of local trustees that we are answerable to, and we deliver services based on the local demand and what's required here in our area, and we need to meet the quality assurances by Age UK National, but essentially we are a charity in our own right. Lots of the services that we do, we offer daycare. So our daycare service is quite long running, and we have minibuses. We can collect people, take them to a setting where they can enjoy a day where they're cared for, hot meals, activities, depending on, we have some that are specific for people with dementia, and then also with limited mobility, and they're across the city and the county. And we've been fortunate that we have been able to open those up in the current times, and we've taken a lot of care to make sure we are meeting the government guidelines to be COVID compliant and everything in place to keep everybody safe. But it has been extremely important that people can go back to those services because we know how much people have struggled without them over the summer. We have lunch clubs where people can come and enjoy a hot meal. They just pay for the food, but they're able to, in normal circumstances, they can eat together, which is very important. A social activity where people can not be eating alone at home. They have somewhere where they can come and eat together and eat a healthy hot meal. Again, those lunch clubs are around the city and the county. Currently not open, but obviously are hopeful that we will be able to have them open as soon as it's safe to do so. Our resource centre activity, well, the resource centres, we have our flagship building in the centre of Leicester, down Humberston Gate, Clarence House. That runs a couple of our daycares, but it also is home to many, many activities, a lot of them physical. So we have like Zumba, yoga, lots of dancing, line dancing, also music, guitar lessons, and languages and sort of IT as well when they're up and running. Sadly, we're not able to run those at present, but we are again looking into risk assessments to see when it's safe for them to resume after this second lockdown. And our information and advice service is something that we run as part of our core service. We have dedicated workers who can advise on benefits checks, any sort of financial concerns. We can look into that, see if we can access extra funding. Some of the work recently, in light of the BBC licence fee having to be paid by older people over 75, if people are in receipt of pension credits, then that actually means they don't have to pay for the license fee. So again, if someone isn't sure whether they're eligible, we can do the benefits check and see if they are not only receive extra income, but also means they don't have to pay for their TV license. Also in-work benefits, because it's anyone over the age of 50. So during these times, older people, there's lots of things where people are unsure about their working situation, older people out of work, and what benefits they might be entitled to. So again, our whole information and advice service is there to support people through that, as well as information about care services when they might be thinking that a relative might need to move into a different care setting. We can help and advise in that way. So lots and lots of different things that we can do. And domiciliary care, so that's what we got, a home care service. So these are paid for services where we can offer personal care in someone's home. We can also provide gardening services, handymen can do sort of those low-level tasks, and also personal assistance. So people who might not need personal care, but they do require some assistance around the home, and that can be tailored to whatever they need that person to do. It could be helping with sorting out their paperwork. It could be taking them out shopping or doing some light cleaning, some duties around the house. So again, that's another service that we offer. Carers Hub, so we have a dedicated team of workers who support carers. That can be anyone living in the city, either the carer or the cared for person. If they reside in the city, within the city boundaries, then we can support them. That's with practical help and support, emotional support, peer groups, just checking. At the moment, they're doing lots of Zoom calls, checking in on people. We know there's quite a heavy responsibility on lots of carers at the moment because their respite care has been reduced or cut completely, and there's lots of carers strain where people are really struggling, where they're having to manage the situation and look after their loved ones. And then there's befriending, which is offered currently, sort of, there's established services in Northwest Leicestershire and Rutland, Northwest Leicestershire, and Rutland. We've got dedicated workers there who support volunteers to visit people in their own homes. Currently, they're not obviously having to do home visits, but they've converted all their existing matches to telephone or Zoom support to carry on as best we can. And then there's the retail outlets. So you'll see in many of these towns and villages around Leicestershire are about 23 shops, and that is actually where a lot of our income generation comes from. We're very reliant on this income to keep those core services running. Right, I've probably got lots to get through. So part of, as well as the core services, we have lots of project-specific work that we do based on how projects can be funded. And some of these are trying to promote people to be more independent, more active in the community, men and women in sheds. So in Loughborough, we have men, women in sheds has been launched, and in Rutland. And these are very well attended venues that have, as you'd expect, all your tools and your places where people can go and make things and spend time together. And they're very popular. Joining Forces, a project to support veterans and people who might have done national service. Workers there support people with anything they need. They might have access to particular funding pots based on their time in the services, and they've been doing lots of events across the county, lots of groups and celebrations and trips and things. Think Digital, with the current times, it's very apparent that there's a huge disparity between older people who don't have access to online services, and yet there's a huge requirement amongst people's day-to-day living to do many things online. For example, currently the online shopping, and just accessing information in that way. Think Digital workers are supporting people to feel safer online and to be able to use devices better, to get more out of them, and support. And that's I know that's funded for a further 6 months, so we're hoping that will go from strength to strength, because during these times it's clearly something needed. Last Orders is a project that supports people with alcohol dependency, or they may have had alcohol dependency in their lives, and they might be in a place where they are in a better place. They just need some support going through changes in their lives. So we've got 2 workers at the moment. They were doing lots of awareness. So previously there would be groups where they would explain the impact of alcohol on medication and cognition. Now at the moment they're supporting people one-to-one with regular phone calls. And community mentoring, I'll talk more about that when we get to that with loneliness prescriptions, but essentially we were mentoring people, providing volunteers to support somebody to be able to access the community more, and that's been working alongside the Loneliness Prescriptions Project. And dementia specific therapy, MCST, that's working with carers of people with dementia to sort of help them care for their loved one. I think sort of reminiscence and working with their cognition to help improve how they're coping with the dementia. So there's lots of things that are happening now and have happened in the past that we continue to deliver. With the focus on health and well-being, there have been previous projects where we have focused on the physical activity of older people, and how it's important that people can keep motivated and keep going. Get Going Together was a group about 5 years ago now. I have realised I've written some stuff about this. I can't see it, so bear with me. Hold on. But essentially, their workers work there to form fitness groups where they would focus on physical activity. I think there were about 30 groups over a 3-year period, and they also focused on sustaining those groups so that not only were they being supported during the time of the project, but they were able to continue those groups in a community setting. They were supported to either access extra funding so they could provide those groups longer term. Anything Goes had a similar setup, funded through Leicester Aging Together, big lottery money for about 3 years. Working in the city in some targeted wards, we were actively trying to engage older people within the community to attend groups, and focus was on activities, interesting and engaging sessions, lots of trips as well, going shopping trips to the seaside, and that was all part of the funding for that, to keep that going. And the 3 groups that were set up originally, apart from currently because of lockdown, are still going, and they do still meet regularly, so it's nice to have that legacy. And Food with Friendship. So Food with Friendship was a project I was involved with, funded by Bupa, the Bupa Wellbeing Foundation. For about 18 months, we were able to deliver cooking courses. So for groups of older men, many with caring responsibilities, we designed 10-week courses to deliver, to learn, quick and easy meals that they could make. Nutrition was a focus, but also in them working together. So they cook and eat together. And some of those groups, they're still in touch with each other, and we've hoped they've maintained friendships through their connection through cooking. And I understand they are still cooking as well. That has currently stopped at the moment, but obviously hoping to be able to deliver something similar in the future when things change for everybody. And I've run through everything. So I'm just going to take a drink. Bear with me. The Loneliness Prescription Service was launched in 2015, funded by the Big Lottery as part of Leicester Aging Together. And it had a very specific pathway where GP practices, health professionals, if they identified a patient who had perhaps non-medical needs, so they perhaps going to the doctors a lot, they had the reasons for going to the doctors, but perhaps they weren't medically the only reason. So doctors and people within the surgeries or health professionals could refer to loneliness prescriptions, and we could support people to see what their barriers were to accessing the community. And we would support them to try and help them overcome those barriers. So it just could have been needing extra support around the home. So if they needed, we could access some extra funding for them through their information and advice. If they had problems with housing, if they just needed some information about where groups were, because sometimes it was just not knowing which groups were available in their area. So just saying there's a group down the road. And sometimes telling somebody where a group wasn't really enough. They needed someone to be with them, to perhaps take them to a group so they could feel a bit safer. They've got someone with them to help introduce them. And that mentoring aspect sort of ran alongside loneliness prescriptions and still does, with volunteers able to support people to access groups or attend sessions and to essentially keep active. And telephone befriending was also included. So before lockdown, we already had an established telephone befriending service. Volunteers would come to Clarence House and they'd have a list of people to phone, and they would make, I think we were making about 120 calls at the time with about 20 volunteers. So any referrals through loneliness prescriptions, if they needed some extra support over the phone, a bit of, someone to chat to, we were able to offer that straight away. and that is through lockdown. One of the main things that has grown considerably. We've been able to offer an increased service with volunteers making phone calls from home. We've got over 70 volunteers now phoning over 200 people every week. And the other, I think I mentioned signposting and connecting. So that was, as I suggested, about telling them where the services were and maybe referring on to other organisations. I'm slowing down now because actually it's only half past. I did talk very fast. And let me just see if I missed anything. So in terms of the mentoring, we would match a volunteer depending on the individual situation of the people we come into contact with. And one of our gentlemen, Mike, and his wife Bev, were referred to us to support Mike with his motivation, really. We'd supported them in lots of ways. Bev as a carer for not only her husband but also their daughter, who had learning disabilities. So we brought in a volunteer to support them. So I'm just going to play the video that we've asked them to contribute and tell their story in their own words. Sorry, it's working. Can you hear it?
I think some of us might be having some technical issues in hearing the video.
Is it too quiet? Okay.
I can't hear it at all, sorry.
Oh no, because I've got maximum volume on here. I didn't know. See, I just all I know is that I've got maximum volume on the actual slide itself. Oh, is that the same sound quality?
Yeah, I can't hear that one either, sorry.
I can't hear it. Oh, that's a real and also my slides won't go. Okay, hold on. I'll just see if there's any other settings here. I'm not sure I can do much more. It's just too quiet, yeah? It's just, you can't hear it at all, or it's very low?
There's no sound coming at all, Julia.
Share computer sound. Maybe if I do that.
It was very, very sudden. I woke with my
Any different?
tremendous pain.
Yeah,
Yes, that's fine.
My legs were interlocked.
Well done.
I couldn't move at all. I went to hospital. I was operated on, but I was told I was paralysed from the waist down. And I just got to face up to the fact I had lost my legs, but I could see, I could still move, I could still talk. I mean, the important thing for me was I've still got my wife, I've still got my family, and I've still got my grandchildren. I've been involved with Age UK in Leicestershire for the last 12 months. At the end of last year, I met Chris.
mid-January, I think it was, she introduced me to a lovely guy called Mike. He's wheelchair bound. And I went to meet Mike at a local gym to me in Birstall, where he has weekly physio. And by doing this, I could see very clearly and very accurately the range of movements that he could do comfortably. And we started with some yoga or mindfulness, yoga breathing, which I'm sure Mike had never done before, but he seemed to really enjoy it. And then we went on and did the exercise. And I know he very much loved the end of each session where we did the restful mindfulness and relaxation. Unfortunately, with COVID, as with many things with COVID, these weekly meetings have had to stop. But Mike has continued with his exercise, and I hope some of his mindfulness as well.
Chris used to visit me every Friday. At the beginning of lockdown, I'll be honest, that I wasn't thorough and regular in keeping up with it, but I did, when I did remember what to do, I got into that session and relaxed myself down and tried to remember everything that we've been discussing. Chris rings me now and again to see how I am, even though we've not seen each other for such a long time. And with what Chris taught me, I'm continuing with the confidence that he's given me and the control of the body. And when I remember doing all the exercises that we went through and trying to relax my mind.
When Chris was introduced to us, and after that, when he came, he used to tell me to go off, go out, go do whatever, and more often than not I used to go out for a walk or go to the shop, and it was just great just to have some respite time and some me time, but knowing Mike was also safe at the same time. The other thing with having Chris come in, I was trying to get Mike to do his exercises, but I became the wife nag. And then Mike would say, oh, don't keep going on about it, don't keep going on about it. And all I was trying to do was to help him. But it's different coming from me than what it was when Chris was here. He had a calming approach. He was a very calm person. And it worked for Mike. And it took the pressure away from me having to nag Mike to do his exercise, because he did start doing it voluntarily.
From my own point of view, I've derived an enormous amount of benefit, joy in doing it. And it's encouraged me to go on and take some coaching badges so I can then coach people in a wider sense. So I highly recommend it for those that are doing it and for those that are the recipients.
My experience of Leicestershire Age UK has been very positive, and I've with the constant phone calls I get, it's really nice to know that they are interested in what I'm doing and keeping up with my situation. I think that without the help of Age UK, Leicestershire and Rutland, I wouldn't have continued doing the exercises and control. I don't know what I would have done, because I used to be a very, very active person before this happened to me, and these exercises and mind control has helped me feel a lot more confident in myself.
So I hope you can see from those personal accounts the benefits of being able to support people in this particular way. And it was very lovely to introduce Chris to the family and to see, and it was essentially, that is exactly what they asked for. Bev did not want to be the nagging wife, and I mean, it's really also good to see the lasting effects during COVID, and how actually having that intervention at the very beginning of this year has really helped them through this time. And as I said, we also supported Bev through the Carers Support Project as well. And this is just one example. Another example we'll go on to is a gentleman called Cash, who quite early on when we were introducing mentoring, we introduced Cash to a gentleman who just needed a bit of encouragement to get out and about. So I'll just play this video and then we'll chat a bit more. So here's Cash. Hopefully you can hear it okay.
My name's Cash Sahota. I've been volunteering at Age UK in Leicestershire and Rutland since 2018. Initially as a befriender, but more lately as a community mentor. I've also worked in the volunteer admin department at Lansdowne House. I am 57 years young and I've been married for 34 years. We have a son who's 30 years old. My work background is in the construction industry, where I was in financial management for 37 years. Although I carried out some training and mentoring work at work, what we do at Age UK is somewhat different, so it was a big change for me. Anyway, enough about me. I want to tell you about a success story for the Community Mentoring Project. In the summer 2019, I was matched up with Bill. Bill had been housebound for 2 years. He had some sort of heart issue. As a consequence, he suffered a complete loss of confidence and in turn lost his independence. Although he lived with his wife, she couldn't persuade him to go out. Bill wanted to go swimming, but that was beyond what Age UK could provide. He also liked to play cards. We felt we could help him with that. Age UK provided a facility in Clarence House where clients played cards together. We agreed that cards was a good place to start, but for Bill that meant catching a bus into town, which he wasn't happy to do on his own, as he'd not been out for 2 years. Anyway, we decided to take small steps and start with a walk in the local neighbourhood. So on the first week, I set off with Bill. He had his walkie stick with him because, as I say, he wasn't very stable. We walked for about a mile, which took an hour and took 3 decent rest stops. I'd lived nearby from 1974 to 1986, so that was some 30 years earlier. So we were able to talk about how the area had changed and how some of it hadn't changed. In fact, we talked about all sorts of things. Bill was able to say hi to a lot of people he hadn't seen in a while. We both enjoyed the walk. And in our walking and talking, we actually found we had a mutual friend who had been the Lord Mayor of Leicester at one point. When we got back home, Bill was very tired. Clearly, Bill needed to build some stamina. So after a discussion, he agreed to walk around the block every day. His wife said she'd make sure he went. So at that point, I left him after visit 1. The following week when I went down, he was quite a different person. Bill was full of energy. He had been walking every day, and even his wife said she'd noticed the difference in him. When we went out, the walk was a lot quicker. This time he didn't need a walking stick. This time we went on a different route, and again he said hi to more people. On the way back, we actually knocked on the ex-Lord Mayor's door and said I was able to say hi to a friend who I had not seen in nearly 40 years. When we got home, Bill agreed to think about getting a fitness tracker as extra motivation. And he's also got on his computer and looked at booking a spot at Clarence House to play cards. It really felt positive after the second visit, all very good. The following week, when I went to see Bill, he'd been into town on the bus and he'd played whist. He really enjoyed it, and so I got plenty of feedback about the game, which I felt was a fantastic result. Off we went on our walk again, which was very enjoyable. This time we popped into a few shops so he could see a few more friends. It was good to see him so happy. The walk wasn't as long this time because it seemed to go so quick. When we got back home, we agreed that that was all the support he needed for now. Bill agreed to carry on walking, and he was very keen to carry on playing cards. I agreed that I would call him after a few months, which I did. He was still getting out and he was still playing cards, and more importantly to him, he was still winning. It was great to see Bill re-engaging with society, and it felt good to have helped somebody. I've been asked what difference did I make, and how did that happen? Well, I like to think I listened, The second thing was I resisting making any commitment I couldn't manage, like the swimming. Agreeing on small things, small steps, so it was easy to manage. Also, always being keen to try and willing to try alternative motivators like the fitness tracker. I think I also connected with Bill, and I genuinely engaged in the conversation so Bill could see I got something back as well, like meeting the Lord Mayor. This time it only took 3 or 4 weeks to get a results, but sometimes it will take the whole 12 weeks and that may not be enough. All you can do is keep trying.
So I really do want to thank Cash, really, because I know he was quite nervous about doing when we asked him to report on something, and it was some time had passed. So I'm very grateful that he was able to put that together. And I think it does show that, I mean, I could talk forever about volunteers. I've worked with volunteers quite closely for a few years now, and it's as much as what they get out of it individually, that is really, really important. And I think you can see that. And also what volunteers bring when they support people in terms of their own knowledge and skills and experience. And that's something that we like to be able to tap into as well. At one point, I think I had about 23 volunteers doing some sort of face-to-face support, maybe mentoring or emotional support. So they would go in and they would do some home visits and listen to people, and some not as successful. One, we'd introduced a volunteer and with a clear plan, but the person never quite wanted to go beyond. So we supported us for as long as we could and to help us as best we can. But essentially, having this opportunity, it's an extra thing to be able to offer, that volunteers can give their time freely and support people. And this is what we're hoping to be able to do as soon as we have the green light. We've currently got funding to be able to extend befriending services in the city and in the county, at least for the next 6 months. So currently we're expanding the telephone befriending service, but ultimately we are sort of trying to prepare so that we're in a really good place to support people who really want to get back into the community, who want to remain active and participate, but maybe have growing anxieties and fears about stepping out the door. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some, community mentors, volunteers who would be willing to just escort people, just short walks to build confidence, like Cash did with Bill, or to get people back into groups and to accessing places when hopefully they are open again. I know we've got a long winter ahead, so we're just trying to have everything ready. And another aspect of the Learners Prescriptions is the physical activities project, which is funded by Leicestershire and Rutland Sport, and we're very grateful to be able to recruit a worker to work 1 day a week for 6 months. And I'm just gonna slide.
My name's Cass.
So we have Khadija has been with us now for about 6 weeks, 1 day a week, with the sort of the focus on supporting people to become or remain active in the community. Ideally, it would be doing walking groups and physical activities out in parks, perhaps using the gyms in the outdoor gyms. But although we were almost ready before we could even get started, obviously we were entered into second lockdown. So currently Khadija is engaging older Asian women online. So either using a WhatsApp, doing one-to-one, short armchair activities or little fitness routines, or using Zoom with the idea to engaging small groups of older people to communicate, to be together on an online way, but also to encourage physical exercise and to motivate and encourage. So once she sort of said, oh, we'll do this today, let's see if we can keep doing it in the week. So lots of motivation, encouragement and mentoring to try and embed a more regular exercise routine. And that's what Khadija's working hard on at the moment. And the idea is hopefully we'll have volunteers that can step in where Khadija's established a group. The volunteer can take that on, and that means the Khadija can then support a fresh cohort of people wanting to participate. And again, hopefully we can, looking out the window at the weather, thinking I don't know when, but in the springtime, it would be fantastic if we could have groups meeting in parks, socialising, walking, small exercises, just to keep older people more motivated and keeping fit. And I think that draws my presentation to a close. I did see there were some things in the chat box, but I don't know if I'm the only one that's got access to that.
Julia, could I take one of the questions?
Oh, be my guest.
And thank you very much for that presentation. It's good to be introduced and see someone else do all the hard work, and well done on getting the audio running. Joe Spokes has asked about is the loneliness prescription project part of the Leicester City's social prescribing offer? Basically, we set up the project in 2015 before any of the social prescribers were in place. And at that stage, most of our referrals were coming through the city care navigators. But we have seen with more and more of the primary care networks employing social prescribing link workers, we've seen certainly during the latter end of 2019 and during this year, now the majority of referrals we get on loneliness prescriptions are from the city social prescribers. Joe also asked if we do anything similar in the county or Rutland. Well, at the moment, we've been running a befriending scheme in Northwest Leicestershire for some years that's funded by the local district council, and we've had some short-term funding to extend our befriending work in the county. But our befriending, the funding can be short-term, it can be patchy. In terms of Rutland, we are part of something called the Rutland Community Wellbeing Service, and we do offer a range of support, including support for people living with dementia and also physical activities. But we're part of a local partnership that is funded by Rutland County Council. Eleanor also asked, does the fund digital service cover the county? If we're talking about the Think Digital programme, that does cover city and county, and that is now going to be funded up until the end of May next year. Julia, can I hand back to you?
Well, I was looking at the next question actually, was about the GP referrals into the befriending and mentoring programme. And it is difficult to know how to answer that. At the moment, certainly with telephone befriending, we are taking referrals from everywhere because we realise the demand is there and it's very little on offer. And also in the county, we will definitely be expanding that to, it won't be GP referral, it will be open referral. Potentially, I think it would be an open referral system. I'm not quite sure about the city.
Well, I think we can say that as you said in your presentation, the original aim of setting up loneliness prescriptions was to work with GP practices to actually do what we know as social prescribing now. It was to connect people to services that would support their well-being, and that would include physical activities. And yeah, the idea is that those referrals do come through a GP or an associated health professional. So now, as I said, the majority of our referrals do come through social prescribers. But as we're in a situation where services have been so disrupted, we are expanding our befriending in both the city and the county. So if you do have someone to refer and you're unsure about, you know, how to support them, then I would suggest you use Julia as your point of contact, and we will try and provide a service. But certainly during this year, we're still running a things like a coronavirus support helpline, because there are lots of older people out there feeling very anxious, and you know, for a lot of them, it's just needing to know there's someone there to talk to.
That answer the questions. I'll answer Samantha Chamberlain's questions. You might want to see if you want to answer the question John Byrne has posted. Samantha, there's details on our website about contacting to volunteer. We have a volunteer coordinator, Namisha Patel. Equally, people can contact me to be befriender. It's just filling out an application form, a couple of references, and a DBS, and then we can do an induction and get people signed. You know, get ready to make calls. At the moment, it's mostly telephone befriending. We're doing some online inductions, getting people through and ready, and matching them up as quickly as we can.
If I could, take John's question was about, has there been any engagement or partnering with the community hubs that have done such a great job during COVID? And I could say, particularly in areas where we've got established projects, such as I mentioned Northwest Leicestershire, our befriending coordinator there certainly worked very closely with these local community hubs, because at the time we were getting the requests for help expanded so much that we couldn't have really succeeded on our own. We had to work in partnership, and certainly in places like Rutland, where we've also got an established befriending scheme, we're part of a network of community groups, because, you know, we also we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so working with those local hubs became a very important part of our activity this year.
Just changing to the last slide for to hand over to Kate. I think there's is that all the questions answered? I'd like to say thank you very much. Oh, hang on, there's another question. What was left? Another question from Stephen. That sounds interesting. I don't know whether to just get in touch, Stephen, and see if there's anything we can work on there.
Well, I know that we do already. We have some established bowls groups in the county, but we're always we are always looking forward to developing new things. So yeah, we will. If you can give us some contact details, I would like to get in touch there. I think from your presentation, Julie, I think one of the points I think we've got across is as a local organisation, we've got a very diverse offer of services. So what I like to see is that we might connect with people for, say, domiciliary care, but we can offer them access into all sorts of opportunities, including befriending or the physical activity offer. And that I think is where we really succeed as a local provider.
Thank you I think that's all the questions. I think thank you very much for the questions. That was really good to see. And if I hand back to Kate, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Julia and Troy. I think you've given us a great insight into the services that Age UK provide and some of the projects that are currently in place. It's really interesting to hear directly from those involved in some of these programmes, and to see how they've been supported and clearly how they've benefited very positively. I mean, for myself, one thing that sprang to my mind was that it's not just the one person that may have a difficulty, but it does involve an impact on the whole family. And also, clearly, you know, from how Chris and Cash spoke, you know, being a volunteer, you also reap a lot of rewards from being involved with these individuals and families as well. So those case studies were great, really good listening. I'm quite sure we've all picked up on areas where we think we might be able to link in and support, potentially offer more additional opportunities through physical activity interventions. And as you mentioned, Troy, it's even signposting to, you know, with the networks of individuals and families that you've got. It's, you know, the more information that we can share with you of different opportunities, like the bowls clubs, etc., then, you know, we can offer that signposting also. So yes, thank you very much. It just kind of leaves me to say that there will be a link to this recording, and that will be sent to you. And